This program right now is actually being live streamed. So, but you don't have to worry. If you have any questions that you feel you don't want people to know who's asking, you can definitely put it in the chat box, and I will ask our medical doctors, come BKs, meditators. I'll ask them these questions. I did receive questions. In fact, I was poured by questions. So, in case if you do have any questions as we go along this session, then you can definitely type and send me privately, and I will ask our two meditators here. So, I would like to welcome. I would like to welcome Kanishtha Ben, Shwetank Pai, all the way from the East Coast. So I guess Zoom made your trip easy and quick. You didn't have to spend hours of flight to join us. Welcome. So we, before we go into the class, as how we would usually do, we will get into meditation first, and then we will go into the class. So everyone is ready for meditation?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I will put the light on the screen. So I would like to request all of you. In fact, I will mute all of you right now. And then when the meditation is over, I'll unmute you. So let me sit back comfortably, keeping this body relaxed. And today, I'm going to focus on the center of my forehead. To I, this beautiful soul. I am a living deity seated in this temple. This body is my sacred temple. In order to keep this temple clean, I need to keep my conscience clean. Let me look at the light in front of me right now. The Supreme Light, the Supreme Soul, God. And just for a few moments, let me share my inner feelings to God right now. Whatever I'm feeling right now, whether it's anger or disappointments or doubts or anxiousness, whatever I'm feeling right now, share it with God. and tell God that today He's going to guide me. He's going to give me answers and help me release these feelings. God is responsible for me. And today, I'm going to get all my answers that I've been looking for. Knowing that my life is entrusted to God now, I'm going to pay attention to what God wants to show me today, that God wants me to understand today. I'm fully focused in my present right now, and I'm ready to listen to what God has to say. Om Shanti. So, Kanishtha Ben, Shvetank Pai, firstly, I'd like to ask you, would you like to be a co-host? Is there something you would like to share?
Not really. So we are okay as long as we can mute and mute.
Okay, yeah. I think everyone can unmute right now. So welcome to this. It's a, I wouldn't want to say overwhelming class, but definitely it's an informative session from all the questions that I received, whether through emails, through phone calls, through text messages. I could clearly understand that all of us right now are probably going through some similar situations and not sure how to face, how to help, whether it's my family or whether my friends. So today we will gradually understand how we can do. And of course, there's one thing we need to learn, we need to understand is no effort is an overnight success. And you will learn more what I mean by that. So I'm not sure who is going to go first, but I definitely would like to ask you this question that what we say is habit or addiction right now, at one point of time, I think it could have been just a innocent try, right? Wanting to probably try out, maybe out of necessity or out of curiosity. But how did that innocent trial end up becoming a habit that we get stuck on?
But first of all, even before I answer this question, or we answer this question, we would like to express our gratitude and joy as well in participating in this session. It is a joy truly to be able to serve people around the world, and here sitting on in the East Coast, being able to serve people on the West Coast, and that too, like you said, without any difficulty. And really speaking, we have in the past 20 years of our being with the Brahma Kumaris and learning the Raj Yoga meditation, there has been such a tremendous transformation within ourselves, and we've received such beautiful pearls of wisdom from the divine source, the highest intelligence, God Himself, through the power of meditation. And it is indeed a privilege, an honor to be able to share this with everyone. And I also want to say that there has been, in the past, before coming to the Brahma Kumaris, a lot of suffering in a way. In a way, there are two types of suffering. There's necessary suffering and unnecessary suffering, and necessary suffering helps you grow, and unnecessary suffering actually doesn't do anything. It's a waste of energy. I remember myself going through a lot of unnecessary suffering, and so that kind of helped me or inspired me to do something to not just fix myself, but I felt that it is my responsibility to help people around me, who might be suffering unnecessarily as well. And for sure, addiction is a big suffering. And you know the why all this happens is a big class in itself, and we can go into a lot of depths, which I don't intend to, because I guess how we come out of it and how we help ourselves heal is a more important question. But in a way, the solution lies in the problem too. And so, if we do at least a little bit to dissect the problem, then the solutions become very obvious. And so, in a way, now in the world, they're talking about a biopsychosocial model for addiction. Say there is a biological component, because a lot of neurotransmitters, or said simply, some chemicals secreted in the brain, and they kind of keep the functioning of the body in balance. And there are some chemicals which make you feel joyful, some which make you feel kind of little down, in a way to balance out everything. And so when there's imbalance, then these things can be triggered. So there's a biological component, there's a psychological component, that when there is something not really in balance in the mind, there's a difference between brain and the mind. So brain, the biology, the mind, the psyche, that can trigger this whole thing too. And then there is the social component, that when we are not able to engage in good relationships with people, then again, addiction can be triggered. But what I feel is, beyond this biopsychosocial model, there is a spiritual component, that we need to understand. In fact, that spiritual component is all encompassing. And in a way, I like to say that it is the most important thing. It is the thing. And in a way, I like to even say that addiction is a spiritual disease. It is a disease of the spirit. And I feel the fundamental problem that leads to addiction, or like you said, the progression from sheer curiosity, then paving the way towards an actual addiction, is all because of a certain degree of emptiness, a certain degree of hollowness, certain degree of vacuum that we feel. And I remember long back, which we will talk about later in the solution, that I used to feel a lot of existential crisis myself, and I was searching for meaning in life. And that is a very important component. And hopefully we'll be able to cover that, and remind me if I forget to come to that. But really speaking, if you understand that, even from science, even from physics point of view, nature abhors vacuum, nature abhors emptiness. And so when we are empty within, we want to fill ourselves with something. We seek something to fill ourselves, to be able to get rid of that emptiness. It's uncomfortable. Emptiness is a lot of discomfort. And so then we seek things which are readily available. And now I know today's session is more about substance abuse or use. and the subsequent sessions, I guess, that you will be having is about other things. But all of addiction of any type really comes fundamentally from this source of emptiness. And we seek what is readily available for us. We try that out. That gives us a high feeling, that gives us a good feeling. There's a big component of the Kanishtha
Yeah.
dopamine. Yeah, Kanishtha likes to talk a lot about dopamine and in her sessions when she talks about the biology of it and talks a lot about dopamine. So dopamine gets released, and you can read all that about all how neurochemicals work, but all of that creates a happy feeling. Then we want that happy feeling more and more. That becomes a repetition. Yeah, so again, mark that word repetition, because I want to come to that for the solution out of the addiction. And so that repetition then leads to a habit. And then habit, when it becomes so strong that the person begins to identify himself with that habit, that actually becomes the addiction. And of course, there are other components to it: physical dependence and tolerance and so on and so forth, which we don't have to go, because this is not a medical conference. But really, it is the repetition that leads to that strong hold in ourself, in the psyche, in the body, in the sociology of our existence. And all this again finally stems from the spiritual emptiness that we feel. Is
Oh,
that
another yeah. Do you think that addiction can be cured? Since you're saying that it runs so deep on a on a neurotical level, meaning everything is here and then it's coming into habits physically. Do you think it can be reversed? Can it be cured?
Definitely. Actually, science is now showing so many beautiful things about change. Actually, they are talking about that the brain is actually able to change as we grow older. Before that, actually, it was said that brain cannot grow after a certain age.
or can't change?
Yeah, it cannot change, cannot grow, no neural connections, no new neural connections, nothing. But now what they have come up with, which has actually revolutionized the whole of the field of medicine, this concept of neuroplasticity.
And in fact, it has ramifications in virtually everything of
Yeah,
life.
right. So this word, neuroplasticity, maybe it is new for many of you. So the word neuro means the nerve cells, and the nerve cells that are the basic building blocks of the brain and our nervous system. That's the neuro part. And then there is this plasticity. Plasticity is actually the brain malleability. That means the brain has the power to change. It can change, it can adapt. Both types of changes can happen, structural changes also and functional changes also. And a very simple example, classic example is people who people who suffer from stroke,
Yeah, we used
right?
to hear that back in the medical school.
Yeah, when we were in medical school, actually we were taught that brain cannot even if there is any kind of injury in the brain, then it's hard for the brain to recover. But then now, we come to know about this concept of neuroplasticity, that it's not right actually. We have the ability to change our own brain through many different things, through learning new things, through learning new instrument music, like if somebody is playing a new instrument, that also actually triggers changes in the brain. Or maybe if somebody is learning new language, or maybe somebody is doing a new type of reading or anything new, if you focus on that new thing, that newness, that will actually bring new type of trigger to the brain, and that will cause new neurogenesis. There is another word that they use, that is neurogenesis. That means new development of neurons, and also there are connections between the neurons. So these neural connections also, new neural connections, they actually happen throughout our lives. It's not that only when we are born and after a certain age. It's not like that. Yes, definitely they say that when we are young, then the possibility of neural connections is much more. But as we grow, then also it's possible. It's not that we cannot change. It is possible.
Yeah, in other words, change is the most constant thing in this whole universe. Everything is changing around us. Everything is changing within us. We're all changing at all times. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so change is happening inevitably and unconsciously. As we live our lives from one day to the next to the next. In fact, every minute we are changing. The brain is evolving. Yeah, what Kanishtha was saying, that earlier we thought that after an age of about 7 or 8, the brain stops evolving. Whatever you've learned and how much ever the brain has developed by that time, that's all. That's what you live with for the rest of your lives. But no, actually the person who came up with this concept of neuroplasticity won the Nobel Prize, because this is where the billion-dollar answer lies, that everything is evolving, everything is changing anyways, without even our knowing it. Subconsciously things are changing, unconsciously things are changing, but what we can do now is to change it consciously. Yeah, but before we go into that, even from a philosophical point of view.
Yeah, there is one Greek philosopher actually. He came up with this beautiful quote that no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he is not the same man.
Say,
So this is I mean, it's good to know that you say that is definitely possibility, and also scientifically it's also proven. But then I think a lot of us want to know is how do I actually bring that change? And I think the responsibility lies on different parties. One is if I myself, example, if I myself am an addict, and if I feel that I would like to change, or I feel this is no longer working for me, from my end, what is it that I can do? And I'm just going to lay out the questions because I think our answers are going to be so interconnected, right? One is what is my role? What can I do? And I think second is I would also need support system in my life, right? Like whether my family, my parents, or my spouse or my children, so people that I live with, how can they support me? So it's two. One is what is it I can do for me? And second, as parents or as my family who might be seeing me going through this, they may not be happy. Um, I think maybe to some extent, maybe they could have gotten tired, um, going through this struggle. So let us know both parties what are the steps that they could take.
yeah. So first of all, I just again want to go back to this neuroplasticity thing, that it brings hope right away. And so I want to start off on this positive note, and also, hopefully we'll have time to reiterate this and leave you off on that positive note. That the thing that people have been thinking all along, that once an addict always an addict, is absolutely not true.
Yeah, it's a label.
It's a label. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just like labels, you have labels on the commodities that you buy, right? And you can just rip that label off and throw it in the trash. You don't wear the label, as when you're wearing all these different garments, right? When you go to a mall, buy a garment, you don't take the label with you when you go out wearing those garments. You rip them off. And similarly, it's as easy as that, maybe a little more difficult because maybe the adhesive is a little stronger. But eventually what you can do is get rid of the label. And so, in other words, what I truly want to emphasize, for either a person who is suffering from that addiction, which in a way, truly speaking, we are all addicted. This is really the most addicted I don't know, society that we can ever think of. We are addicted to innumerable things, all right? And so all of us can heal, all of us can de-addict ourselves. And also for the caregivers who are taking care of people around them who are, in their lives, who are addicted, this is true good news. This is true good news, and it's not just sugarcoating it or just to make you feel good, but they can change too, right? And we'll learn today, we'll try to go over all of these components of how we can change ourselves in a way to change others. And so whatever we are going to share now, think of it as, if you are a caregiver, many times what happens, let me start from here, is many times we think that the responsibility is on the shoulders of the person who is going through, he has or she has to change. But actually, we as caregivers have to understand that we have to heal with the person. When we heal, you know then we can kind of trigger the healing in the other person. And to some extent, this is very important to understand, and I really hope I don't end up offending you or any of you really, that if somebody in our family has gotten addicted to any substance or anything for that matter, there is a little bit, at least a component of our responsibility in that. Somewhere when we are empty within, when we are seeking for meaning in the world out there, and trying to fill ourselves with all the materialistic things of the world, we kind of trigger the same kind of desire in people around us. So, pardon me if I have offended anyone, but that's the truth of the matter. So, in a way, if you want that person to heal, you have to start working on healing yourself too, subconsciously. All right. So, here, now we can go into these various components of healing. And again, going back to neuroplasticity, then what triggers the change in the brain? Yeah, what triggers the change in
Yeah,
the
that's very important actually.
is the
Is the
thought.
thought actually. Our thoughts are very important. The way we think, it changes the entire structure and function of the brain. So if we work at the level of our thoughts, if we bring about a change in our thoughts, then it is definitely possible to overcome addiction.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there are so many experiments. Many of you know about the this experiment, water experiment. Yeah, many of you know about that, right? The Japanese researcher, Dr. Emoto. What he did, he experimented with water, and he was able to find the effect of our own thoughts on water molecule. What he did, he maybe if many of you don't know about the experiments that he did various experiments. And what he did, he took jars of water, and in those jars, some of the jars he wrote, or he just created the positive thought that I love you, or had that feeling of gratitude towards water. And in some of the jars he just created negative thoughts, like I'll kill you, or I'm sick of you, or something like that. And then what he did, he then examined the water sample from these jars, and what he found, under the microscope he photographed them, and what he observed, that the crystals, they were actually very different in both the samples. um, those samples where he had put the positive thoughts, the positive energy, those crystals, the water crystals, they came out to be very beautiful. They were very symmetrical, they were very colorful, and like snowflake like crystals he was able to examine, because of the positive energy that he had put into that water sample. And on the other hand, the other type of the other water sample where he had put in negative energy, negative thoughts, there what he found, that the water crystals, they were very distorted, they were asymmetrical, they were not at all looking beautiful in any way. So what these experiments, they, what he found, that there is a profound effect of our thoughts on the molecules of water.
Yeah,
And
even the molecular structure of water changes by
exactly.
thoughts. So thoughts have a tremendous power in them, you know.
Yeah, and our body is composed of about 70 to 80% water. So if we work on our thoughts, then not only brain, but actually every cell of our body, we have this ability to bring about the change in every cell of our body. And if every cell of our body changes, then definitely the neurochemicals, they will also be released, whatever neurochemicals they are getting because of taking the drugs from outside, the same kind of chemicals. We have the power to release those chemicals. Actually, the body has immense capacity to release those chemicals. And we can do it naturally. We don't have to become dependent on the outside things to release those chemicals.
So really
Yeah.
speaking, it is the power of thought. Yeah, and let me give you a little more understanding of how powerful thoughts can be. Because sometimes when you hear these things a couple of times, then you begin to truly appreciate the power of thought. And they have done so many experiments now. I mean, really speaking, in a way, this conversation is redundant because there is nothing to prove about it. But I just want this message to be driven home that truly thoughts are powerful. What they found is in these experiments with long-term meditators or even short-term meditators, they do these functional MRI scans or positron emission tomography scans of the brain, and they found that even with short periods of meditation, there was functional changes in the brain. Just positive thinking for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then getting into the scanner, they found that people had changes in the functioning of the brain in different parts of the brain. And over a long period of time, these changes in the function, because when there is increased activity of certain areas of the brain and decreased activity of other areas of the brain, there's changes in the blood supply, changes in the metabolism, and so eventually there is changes in the structure. Certain areas of the brain start growing, and other areas of the brain where we don't really need to use too much, they start to shrink. So many beautiful changes begin to happen in long-term meditators just by the power of thought. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Actually, it's not just long term meditators, but when I was doing my master's in public health few years ago, at that time I did a research in pain patients. And what I did, I asked these, I did these experiments, this research in pain clinic. These patients were coming with all different types of pain, low back pain and knee pain, all different types of pain. And what I did, I asked them to first tell me about their pain score. So their pain score was really very high, 8, 9, 10, like that. And then I asked them to just meditate for 10 minutes. I guided them through the meditation commentary, just like you did it so beautifully in the beginning. I guided them through that. And before and after the meditation, I saw that their pain score level, actually it went down. Even their heart rate, their respiratory rate, their blood pressure, everything went
yeah,
down.
breathing, respiratory rate, I don't
Yeah,
think they will
respiratory rate
understand.
means the breathing.
Yeah.
Everything went down just in 10 minutes. So it's not about just that only long-term
No,
meditators,
yeah, that's
you
true. I
know.
said that short-term meditators, there's changes in the functioning, and
Yeah,
even 10, 15 minutes of positive
right.
thinking can cause a change in the functioning of the brain. And so you see how powerful thoughts are. Yeah, so your thoughts can destroy you, and the same thoughts, yeah, if you use them in the right way, if you create the right kind of thoughts, in other words, then they can make you what you want to be or who you want to be. Yeah,
So,
so yeah.
sorry. Let me ask you this question. When you said that, I'm just going to refer to the example that Kanishta Ben was sharing, where after the meditation, I think you said that their score rate was lower than before they started, right?
Yeah.
So, is it that the pain in the body reduced, or their mind has stopped focusing too much on pain?
That's a very good question, actually. You know what happens? These thoughts that we generate in our mind, they actually impact the brain as well. And also, and then the release of chemicals, the type of chemicals that are released, that are actually affected. So the pain, even if the pain is the same, but the person's perception towards the pain, that gets changed. So person is not able to feel that much pain even though the pain is the same, but because the perception has changed because of the thoughts they impacted the brain, and the brain then release the chemicals, mainly the endorphins. These are the main chemicals that are released when the person is in pain. Endorphins means endogenous morphins. That means the body has natural ability to release these pain relieving chemicals. So the person is able to release these chemicals, and this is the reason why he is not able to feel that much pain.
So if I start perceiving my pain less, which means then I would actually reduce my need for certain medication to to overcome my pain. Basically, the need reduces when
Right.
the intensity of pain that I'm thinking actually reduces.
Yeah. So you increase the dose of meditation and you reduce the dose of your medication. Yeah, that's the beauty of
It's
doing this
nice.
meditation regularly. Yeah.
I have another question. Like I said, there was just questions pouring down to me through different people. So you were saying about all about thoughts. So I, probably being an addict, okay, I can work on my thoughts and my family members who I'm living with because they love me, because I'm, close to them. They can have good thoughts for me, uplifting thoughts for me. But then I still have no control over society or friends, right? So oftentimes that also, because like you said, being labeled, right? My family members may not label, they can, support me, they can caringly uplift me. But then it will be very hard for me to expect that similar conduct from friends or society or community. There's one question came about where um, the person who tried to come out of that addiction, they had a big social circle, friends, and then friends started, isolating that person.
Yeah.
They were not able to get a job in the community, and
Yeah.
then that led to depression and suicide. So how can I, um, what can I do to counteract the influence of society on my life?
Yeah, so see, this is a problem throughout society, throughout I don't know, life in general. Even in medical field, we as physicians like to label people as a heart patient, a diabetic, a hypertensive, and so these labels then become part of the psyche of the person, becomes their identity. And so somewhere we have to work through this. We cannot kind of blame society for where or what it is doing. Somewhere we have to break that vicious cycle of society influencing us, and then we then replaying what the society expects from us. And i feel I feel the answer lies in, again, this power of thoughts. And so if it's okay with you, I can go a little bit deeper into this whole understanding of power of thoughts. Because in a way, our thoughts get organized into beliefs. Yeah. And so there is this beautiful concept in psychology called as self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't know if people have heard of that. Yes, the self-fulfilling prophecy, what it says is that our beliefs lead to our outcomes. So, in other words, what we think is what we create. Yeah, sometimes this kind of thing leads to a feeling of what, magical thinking or something, some sort of magic is happening out there. But no, actually there are some links that we need to understand between the belief and the outcome. And in a way there are two. Yeah, one is the first one. Yeah, in progression, the first one is our expectations. So if we believe in something, our expectations from that changes. That then leads to changes in behavior, and then changes in behavior lead to the outcome. So say for example, if I see myself as an addict, and I truly totally believe myself to be an addict, and I truly believe that I can never be fixed. Once an addict, always an addict. I am an addict now and I'll die an addict. If, say, I think this thing, then my expectations from me will be the same. I'll have very low expectations from myself, because of which my behavior will be the same. I will not change any behavior. And so I will end up as an addict all my life. And so that becomes a vicious loop again. Then it will be like, yeah, see, I told you I can never change. And that's the way the society also sees. The society sees a person. So here you see the self-fulfilling prophecy works in very complex ways. So one is we creating beliefs for ourselves and we acting out in a certain way, and then creating our reality. But the self-fulfilling prophecy also works when others see us in a certain way. So say people around us see us as an addict. So what's going to happen, and they too believe that once an addict can never change. Yeah, he'd always be an addict, will always die as an addict. So their expectations from us or me, yeah, will not change or will be very low, because of which their behavior towards me will be in a certain way. And this will all lead to the outcome that is not favorable. I will continue to live and then eventually die as an addict. Yeah, it makes sense. So first of all, what we have to do is to change our own belief. Yeah, we have to change this fundamental thing, that we can fix ourselves. We have to bring that real for us. We have to make it real for ourselves, that we can change. Now that we have understood neuroplasticity, that anything and everything can change, and it changes anyways. We can make ourselves change, period. So with this belief, now what's going to happen is our expectations from ourselves will change. We'll have higher expectations from ourselves. So our then behavior will also change. It'll be a more higher quality behavior, and therefore we can then change ourselves. We will be able to create a life that is free of addiction. Yeah, is it helpful enough?
So
Yeah.
let me rephrase it. So let me see if I've understand it right. So you're saying that the way I perceive myself, whether I realize it or not, I'm actually attracting that same perception from others.
Yes, that too. All right. So you've gone one step ahead. So great. Yeah. So in a way, not just from others, from the universe, from myself, from everywhere. That's what I attract. So yeah, you can look at it from the law of attraction point of view. So yes, when we kind of see ourselves in a certain way, we create expectations from others too around us to see us in a certain way. Yeah. So in a way, it brings the responsibility back on us, back on me, that first I need to fix myself. If I truly create a firm belief, I create a conviction. It's no longer really a belief, yes, no. It truly becomes a conviction for me that I can change. I will create all the new expectations from myself. I will also enable others to create new expectations from me. My behavior will change for myself. I will be able to change others' behaviors towards me, and I will create the outcome that I want for myself. Make sense? So now I guess the $1 million question now can be, how do we really change our beliefs? Right? Is that something you would like to know? Yeah, here this whole concept of visualization comes into play. There is now a lot of buzz around this new concept of simulation hypothesis. What happens is, which something which Kanisha likes to say, that we can stimulate ourselves by simulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Today this idea came, that when we have the ability, to really change ourselves. So we can do that by stimulating our own brain, and we can stimulate our own brain by using this technique of simulation, where we see that this thing is actually happening. That means, even if I am an addict today, but I see myself as a non-addict.
Right.
Right now, I am free from any kind of addiction.
So before we
Yeah.
go there, just one second, let's understand this a little bit. And this happens to all of us subconsciously anyways. Right now, if I ask you to visualize a lion, yeah, or even like tomorrow morning, visualize this whole scene. Tomorrow morning you feel, I want to go out for a walk. You open the door and you see a mountain lion or a big snake, one of the most poisonous snakes, a rattlesnake, or whatever it is. What kind of feelings you start having? There's anxiety, your heart rate goes up, all of those things will start happening, right? Actually, you will find that all that's starting to happen right now. And there is no mountain lion, there is no snake, and this will probably never happen. Yeah. But just visualizing it, just simulating it, yeah, we start experiencing it as if it is reality. So we do it regularly, invariably, spontaneously.
Yeah.
So
Unconsciously.
unconsciously, thank you. So
Yeah.
why can't we do this consciously
In a right way, in the positive direction.
and heal
Right?
ourselves?
Yeah.
It's as easy as that. So
Yeah, like simple example, you're driving to your work and you are late, and then you are visualizing, oh, I'm going to reach late, then my boss will say something to me, and so all those things, I'm bringing those things in my mind. Nothing has happened, but it is a spontaneous, it is kind of, unconsciously we start to create those thoughts. By default we start to create negative images. So why can't we use our mind consciously to create positive images?
by design, now
Yeah.
that happens by default, and we can do it by design. And so by design, we can create a visualization for ourselves, seeing ourselves again and again as someone who's free from addiction, as an addiction free person, a person that who is experiencing the joy of life, how life really is intended to be, finding new ambitions, or moving towards new ambitions, creating an impact in the world, and so on and so forth. That's where this visualization can help in making that belief a true conviction. Because see what happens, if you remember, I had said in the beginning, addiction happens because of repetition. So here too, repetition is important. When we are creating the belief that we are healing or we have healed, there has to be a repetition in that. And the repetition has to be very lifelike, if you will. Even in medical simulation, in aeroplane, the pilots use this, or in military they use simulation. There's a term that is used, it's called as realism. How realistic is the simulation? So if in my mind I can create this simulation, this visualization, if you will, this imagery, whatever way you want to call it, in the most realistic way, yeah, trying to experience myself as a totally recovered, totally healed person who is truly experiencing the joy of life as it is intended to be, then that will lead to changes in my behaviors, and that will lead to the final outcome that I want for myself.
So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I understand what you're saying, that what I visual, what I feel, that eventually when I keep doing it again and again, it manifests. But I think oftentimes people who are already stuck, what I, to say, sometimes it's hard for them to imagine the otherwise. So then in this case, if let's say the person who is in that issue are not able to sort of visualize themselves being happy or visualize a better future for them, then how can people who are living with them, can they do that visual for that person, and can that inspire that addict, not verbally, because sometimes people are just tired of just listening, but can that vibration of their family member, can it touch that soul and inspire that soul? Can the family member do the visual?
Oh, sure. That's what I was sharing earlier, right? The self-fulfilling prophecy is much more complex than we can think, than we can imagine, really. And it works in so many beautiful ways. And so, say, right now, what's happening, yeah, is that for most people, family members deep inside themselves, they have lost hope. They have been told by people all along, they have been told by society in general, the medical field, this person is not going to recover. So their behaviors also follow suit. Yeah. And so the person truly, even if that person wants to come out of addiction, is not able to. Now you use it in the other way, you kind of reverse it. If the family member says again and again to himself, herself, begins to truly believe that the person who is addicted can heal, can recover completely, wholly, fully, then that family member's behavior towards that addict is also going to change. And that behavior change is going to manifest the reality for themselves and for the person as well. Isn't making sense?
Yeah, it's it's two-way.
Oh,
if it,
yes.
if one is not unable to help the self, then the loved ones can step in. uh, Most important is the loved one doesn't give up, and they
For
don't
sure.
give up, or they don't lose hope, as you say. But if they are persistent, and if truly they are convinced that the person who's going through the issue can actually come out, and if the family member can envision that soul being happy or being free, and if they can imagine such a beautiful future, and if every day they can create that visual for that soul, I think energetically also that soul will begin to be inspired, but of course gradually, right? It's not an overnight. It's
For sure.
gradually, slowly, but
Yeah.
things are happening. Things will start happen.
For sure.
Yeah.
And see, I like to see from Brahma Kumari's point of view in the past 20 years of this learning of Raj Yoga, I'm seeing that God sees us, in such beautiful ways,
Yeah, it is said that God created us in his own
and
image.
that's how he sees us.
Yeah.
And we don't see ourselves as that. And that's why our behaviors are wrong, right? And so our outcomes are wrong. And so if we understand that God sees us in such beautiful ways and doesn't lose hope on us, yeah, and then eventually the self-fulfilling prophecy starts to work on us. And when we continue to understand how much God has hope in us, and how much his behavior is such that he is manifesting our highest potential to be expressed, then what happens is we begin to also change our behaviors, and we begin to manifest that reality for ourselves.
So I
Yeah.
think we are, we've gone quite a bit. We've answered quite a number of questions. There's one question in the chat box which I would like to read. It says, "Can someone be addicted to worry and control?"
See, that's what I was saying, that you can conjure up any number of these different addictions, and we are the most addicted society ever. Yeah, the addiction to being you know, being put on the pedestal, you know, to for people to you know, say great things about me, to be validated, you know, and such subtle kind of addictions are there too, you know, and we are all guilty of that truly. So in a way, the entire society needs to heal. You know, it's not just those people who have these real big names to their addictions, substance abuse and opioid abuse and alcohol, but it's each one of us that has to be healed. You know, and I want to say a little bit here about this emptiness. You know, what we are finding and what science is knowing too, you know, from their point of view, psychology is from beginning to understand from their point of view. And we as meditators, we as Raj Yoga meditation practitioners, we are finding that there is this emptiness that has to be fixed. You see, we have to somehow figure it out for ourselves how we can fix this emptiness. And what Raj Yoga teaches us is that when we connect, right, Kanisha, then we connect the soul. Yeah? First of all, it's important to understand the distinction between the soul and the body.
Yeah, we say that we are human beings, but mostly we look at the human part and we forget the being part. But it is actually the being part that needs to be focused on. And this awareness that I am the being, I am the being, that being is actually going to give that fullness, that adequacy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because the being is full,
A
really.
being is
It's
always full, but we have to connect and we have to remember that this is who I am. The moment we start to make that connection, we strengthen that connection, then everything else will actually is possible.
You know, in a way, we there are two dimensions of our existence. One is our spiritual, sorry, the physical. Let's start with the physical component of our existence, and then there's the spiritual component, a spiritual dimension of our existence. And the physical component is, you know, all that we can see with the eyes, all that we can touch, all that we can hear, all of this that we are so familiar with. But the problem with this physical dimension is that there are two main things.
Yeah, in fact, three main things.
Three main
One
things.
is limitation, it's very limited.
Yes.
And second is it's temporary. And third is dependency. We become dependent on that,
Yes,
right?
yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is dependency
Yeah.
also.
So
Lot of
see,
dependency.
limitation, let's go over each one of them quickly. Limitation, you can only do so much. You know, you can only have so much, you can only run so fast, you can only eat so much or so little, and you can only sleep so much or so little. You can only have so much money and so little money. You know, everything is limited. And then there is temporariness. Yeah, everything has to end eventually. Yeah,
and that creates fear actually.
fear and
Yeah,
anxiety and
yeah, worry that
worries and all of those things are, you know, in a way begets more and more emptiness. But as soon as we shift from this physical component of our existence to the spiritual component, where we exist as spirits, as souls, as life energies, as life forces, you know, to understand that energy can never be destroyed. And so in a way we kind of bring, you know, in our awareness, into our awareness, the clear understanding that we are immortal, eternal, indestructible beings. And so the temporariness goes away.
right.
And
Then
then
there is no fear. If I'm not going to die, I'm immortal being, not never going to die, never going to perish, never going to get destroyed.
right, and
Then
also there is fullness and completeness and wholeness, you know, because the soul, the spirit is truly full, complete, whole, perfect, really. And so the that limitation goes away too. So again the worry goes away, so that emptiness needs to go away, and that's the one way of getting rid of the emptiness. In fact, the first step towards getting rid of the emptiness. And the second part of Raj Yoga is connecting to the supreme, to the highest energy, to the ultimate intelligence of the universe. And as we make that connection, then we are able to draw the energy of the universe, the energy of God into our lives. And if we can make that connection constant and strong, then we will never be empty. We'll always be full. Yeah.
So I think that's That's the question that was
Can you
asked.
please repeat how to fulfill the emptiness? Sorry. Can you repeat one more time? Thank you.
Yeah, there are multiple things to it. The first step is to understanding that you have two components or two dimensions of your existence. There's a physical dimension and the spiritual dimension. We ignore the spiritual. We are totally stuck in the physical. In the physical one, there is limitation and there is
Temporariness.
temporariness, and all of which creates that worry, fear, and really emptiness. And so that's why we seek more cars, more houses, more vacation, more spouses, or more, I don't know what all that people in the world do, right? All of these things that people are looking for. But there's never enough. There is never a feeling of fulfillment. There's always emptiness. Emptiness begets emptiness in the physical dimension of our existence. Whereas as soon as we step into the spiritual dimension or focus on that part of our existence, where there is completeness, wholeness, fullness, and there is this
Because the connection,
eternality.
yeah, because this connection, with the being, actually, it fills us with happiness, with peace, with contentment, all the beautiful qualities that we all are yearning for. All these qualities
Come
we are
alive.
able to experience
Yeah.
only when we make this connection, this spiritual connection, which we never be able to experience when we connect with the physical part of ourselves. So that's
Yeah.
why, if you really want to get rid of that inadequacy, that emptiness, it's very important to connect to your real self. And that is who you are. You are truly a being.
Full,
Yeah.
and you being that is full, that's complete, that's whole, that's perfect, that's light, that's energy, that's immortal, that's indestructible. And then the second component is the understanding that we can make this connection with the highest energy through the spiritual component of our existence. And there you can draw as much energy as you need, as you want, and you'll always be full.
Yeah. That's why we compare that supreme energy with an ocean. An ocean is so vast, ocean is so full.
Can never
So
be empty.
yeah, so if you are connected with ocean, then there won't be any feeling of any trace of emptiness.
And then there is a third component in all of this is how we live our lives, and I want to take this, if it's okay, can I take a couple of minutes in this?
Sure.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
a few
Yeah.
other questions, so
Yeah,
yeah.
no, just a couple of minutes, and I have a feeling that it might answer some of those questions that are coming up in the chat box. There is this, what I was sharing in the beginning. There is a lot of existential crisis that is going on in the world, and a lot of it is because we living our lives or leading our lives almost meaninglessly. We are so self-centered, so selfish, so much of me culture that has totally kind of overwhelmed our existence. We are dominated by the self-preservation concept of of life, which really is not necessary. It's all about us, and in a way our smallest suffering becomes so big. You wake up in the morning and you don't find your beautiful pink socks and you're devastated. Whereas there are people in the world who don't have food to eat, who don't have a roof over their head, who are being tortured, beaten, murdered, killed, all of those things happening. And so you see how our suffering, even tiniest suffering, becomes so big. But the only way we can get out of our tiniest suffering, which actually for us is the biggest suffering, is to be able to rise beyond ourselves, do something big, do something meaningful for people around us. So, in other words, going out into the society and serving others. In other words, self actualization, if some of you may have heard this whole concept of Maslow's self actualization, or in other words, me finding my destiny through the service of mankind. Is it making sense? When we go out to serve others, when we have this much, but we share it with others, if we find somebody in trouble and we help them, we give them what they're looking for, we truly have compassion for them, we truly want to uplift them from wherever they are, wherever or whatever place they're stuck in, and truly want to serve them, that's when you begin to feel in that sense of fullness, completeness, wholeness. And that is super healing in itself.
And the more you give, the more you get.
Right.
Begin to feel full more. Right?
I think it's sadhana and seva are the key words. So that means
Thank you.
meditation and selfless service are the two key words.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, sadhana and seva. Oh, I love that. They're rhyming words. Good.
I think what you are really saying is that purpose is very much connected with actions.
Thank you.
Right.
Exactly.
Find my purpose is first I have to perform it in action. And I think karma philosophy plays a role in this.
Absolutely. I know we don't have that much time to go into that. And yeah, that's so true. Purpose-driven life. In other words, you can call it as finding meaning in our lives. I
We
was,
have time. I have told them that the session is going to go longer. So no problem. Yeah. Okay. So we have enough time. Take your time. This is an important subject, and those who want to leave, they may leave. But I have alerted them that the session is going to be a longer session. So
yeah,
please take your
but I'm happy to stop now. I don't want to torture anyone.
No. That's no torture. It's people are here to learn. And when are we going to get your benefits?
I
So
think we are very
we
blessed
are
to get
little
knowledge.
greedy.
Go
We are
on.
really greedy to get as much as we
Very
can.
blessed also to have this knowledge from you. Thank you. Gratitude to you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
One question, if I may ask, I think it's in the chat box. The question is, how can someone be helped if that person that is addicted doesn't believe in soberness?
Yeah, going back to the same thing that I shared earlier. What do you believe? If that person doesn't believe in soberness, what do you believe?
And
Yeah.
also, what do you want?
What do you, yeah, so
Right.
so yeah, wanting leads to believe leads
Yeah.
to wanting, and then creating the reality. Yeah, see, think of it this way. A lot of people ask the same question about if my positivity is not big enough and I'm trying to be positive, but the other person is very negative, how do I change? Well, I say, in a way, they talk about the story of two wolves. The two wolves fight all the time, and one is a good wolf and is bad wolf. And the story of this grandpa telling this tale to the grandchild, and the grandchild innocently asks the grandpa which wolf wins. And what does the grandpa say? The one you feed. Yeah. And so really speaking, how big you make yourself, your positivity versus your negativity or other person's negativity, that's what's going to win. So if your negativity becomes big too, then that negativity is going to win. It's going to compound with that person's negativity, and you will have a negative outcome. But if you want positivity and you really make your positivity big, really big, that person's negativity is going to then lose. You will overwhelm the other person through your positivity. You can incapacitate the other person through your positivity. You can inundate the other person with your positivity.
So I think that also answers the second question that's already there. They say that soberness, or also if they don't believe in God, I think, like how brother was sharing, that immaterial of what the person who's going through the habit, or the person who's having that habit, immaterial of whether they believe in God, whether they believe in a better future for them. I think more so than them, it's the family who live with. Do they have the conviction, right? Do they believe in God? Do they believe in that person, that child that that's going through that issue? And I think that makes a lot of difference to the
Absolutely.
going through the issue.
See, there are more aspects to this, and there is no time right now, but just touching upon this aspect of, many times we want to change the other person, not for that person, but really for ourselves, because we are suffering too. So there is a selfish component to the desire for the other person to change. If we can step back, here this whole concept of detachment comes, which is a whole topic in itself. We learned that through spirituality, that the more detached we are, the more we can help transform the other person. A big paradox, which normally people find it extremely difficult to even digest, right? To forget about digest, to swallow. This is a big pill to swallow. How can detachment really enable transformation in the other person? But that's the truth of the matter. So what I mean to say is that at least if you can't understand the detachment aspect, at least step back and check whether your desire to change the other person is coming from a selfish space, or it is coming truly from that unconditional, unselfish, true self, true state of consciousness, where you're really wanting to help the person for that person. Then you see how that other person will begin to change.
And I think adding to that, when you said whether it's coming out of a selfish motive or it's coming truly for the because I love that soul and I do care for that soul. I think to understand what is really my motive is, if it comes from my own selfish motive, I think I'm gonna put a timeline, right? Kab tak, till when? And I think eventually patience will wear off or hope will wear off, even though I may start strong. But eventually, because I'm sort of experiencing some immediate effect or fruit from that, so then eventually, when I don't see that happening, then my hope starts reducing or my patience starts reducing. Or otherwise, if I'm really having that what do you call the beautiful wish, desire that they come out because they deserve a better life, because they deserve to enjoy and be peaceful and happy in this lifetime, then I think that has a much more strength to it, right? Meaning that you wouldn't set a timeline, you wouldn't say when will you come out, but you're just saying that, okay, let me invest this energy of hope in them, even though whatever I say they may not listen, right? Like I
True.
said, words, people, that's why we have 2 ears, maybe here one side and off the other side. So whatever we say people may not hear, especially them. But I think the more and more we are more focused in seeing that better future for them, and the more and more we are intended to continue supporting them,
True.
nevertheless of what is gonna be their reaction to it. I think eventually that will lead to a good result, right?
Exactly. Because see, attachment in itself is negative energy. You cannot bring positive results using negative energy. End of the story, really. So if I have attachment, I will create what you, like you said, timelines. I will expect things to happen for me. I will lose patience. So this component of patience too comes through detachment. Detachment is positive energy. Attachment is negative energy. I cannot really serve anyone positively using a negative tool.
Okay, I think a lot of your questions in that chat box was answered. Is there anyone who would like to ask their questions?
Yes, sister, I have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
Um, what if all the loved ones around you keep nudging because they have their own belief system and they do not like what you are practicing, or or they don't understand what is going on around you, and they keep nudging? They will find faults. They will keep doing whatever they keep doing because they have their own belief system.
See, think of there is a heater in the center of the room, and there are 25 air conditioners that you have put around that heater. Yeah, which will win, the air conditioners or the heater? It depends on which is more powerful. which continues for longer period of time, which shows resilience, if you will. Yeah, yes or no?
So
Whether the room,
basically,
whether the room
so,
will heat up or cool down. What? Yeah, right.
it will totally depend.
Totally different.
Yeah.
So see yourself as the center heater, and there are 25 people around you with different beliefs. Now, if you have the ability, the grit to continue believing in what you are believing in, if you continue to hold on to your belief, if you can make it into a conviction, and all this has to come from certain degree of truth. I can't believe in I'm going to hang upside down for the rest of the day, and in other words, there has to be truth in the belief. So if it is coming from that truth, then you can work on it to make it into a firm conviction. Then it doesn't matter, the whole world can be against us, and we can still hold on to our conviction. It can't be, your situation really can't be as bad as Nelson Mandela's, right? He was incarcerated for what 20, 30 years, and every day mentally, physically tortured. Yeah, and yet he held on to his conviction, and he came out and then became the president or prime minister of the country. So you see, you check how strong is your conviction. If it's not strong, make it stronger, and then you will win. Helpful enough?
Yes. Thank you.
I have a question
I also
also.
had a quick question. The question is that how do we know at a certain point that it's become an addiction and it's not just a hobby?
Again, when you become dependent on it, when you cannot live without it, that means you're becoming dependent on it. That means you're getting addicted to it.
So, like in a third person, if we are seeing like something, like how do, not in your own self, but in somebody else, how would you make out like a person is dependent? Maybe, he or she is not showing signs and symptoms outside, but you know that the person is addicted to something. So, how would we differentiate? Like now, a point has come that the person is addicted and it's not just a hobby.
Well, it's a difficult question. This also involves medical diagnosis and all that, and you might need to meet with a psychologist. You might need to meet with a psychiatrist, maybe with an addictionologist, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of different things in this.
Yeah, they will take a history and everything, and then they will sort out.
Yeah, there are soft addictions, there are hard addictions, there are a lot of things in this. Even a simple hobby can be an addiction, even work can be an addiction, right? People say workaholic.
Yes.
Yeah, so people sometimes get so, they will say, oh no, I'm just really into doing the best I can, I want to really do this project well, and they could be addicted. So there are very thin lines between interest versus addiction. And we ourselves, each one of us, the quote unquote sane people of the world, of the society, cross that line many times.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, in a way, addiction really is when you can't live without it, when it is consuming a major component of your existence. Yeah.
Yes.
Also,
Okay.
can
I
we
have a question. Sorry. Go ahead after you.
No, I was just adding to the question that was asked, that how do I know whether it's just passion or it's a addiction? That can we say that if it's an addiction means that I would always defend myself, that I would say it is, or sometimes I can get agitated when people are pinpointing, do you think? Because if it's a hobby, I don't think we would get so agitated per se, if somebody were to say something. But if I'm really sort of, my lifeline is already hanging on to that habit, then I think probably I would feel threatened when somebody is saying something, because I think deep inside our conscience is saying something else, right? Which is why when we go against our conscience and when somebody says something, we immediately go into a defensive mode, trying to prove that they are wrong, is it?
Sure. Yeah, I totally agree.
True,
Yeah.
that have
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question.
I have one.
Sorry, because I have an addiction of like, doing things all the time. I make a to-do list until it's done. I can't relax, just take it easy. Even when I am a therapist, I used to work, and then unless I'm done with my paperwork and seeing my patients, I won't sit and chat. Other therapists would just, relax in between. But now I don't work, I'm at home, but still I just cannot take time to relax. So it's kind of addiction of doing things. So I need to come to non-doing. I don't know how.
I
I
know
think
it's
there's going to be a session on that. Today, I
yeah,
think it's the
yeah.
substance use. Your question will be answered in the next sessions.
Okay, thank you.
And what my question is that how about now, like you say that the family, I mean, a lot of times people do it because the personally it is for you rather than them. In that case, but like if some habits are very harmful and they can be abusive using the substance. Sometimes it's not good for the children. So all those things at that time, where you can draw the line as a family and as a spouse or as a loved ones or whichever way you say. And sometimes people who are under the addiction do not even realize that they are addicted. They have a denial in them. And so how do you address that issue?
See, acutely, you might need to take the help from counselors and therapists and even law as needed. If somebody is, because of his addiction, going out to harm people, harm himself, and so on and so forth, then you might need to do whatever it takes to fix that acutely, temporarily. But all this we can work on simultaneously as a long-term fix, because acutely still it won't fix them, right? Will it? Even if you incarcerate the person, even if you put the person in I don't know, one of these therapy places, it still won't fix them completely. So all that I was telling, that somewhere working at the spiritual level, like Kanishtha and I, we both were talking about the spiritual level. When you start working on the spiritual level slowly over time, then the real fix happens. Yeah, so you have to find it for yourself. There are hundreds of different scenarios, but somewhere use your discretion, see where you feel that this is really getting dangerous for yourself, for the family members, and you might need to take professional help. So yeah, this session is not a substitute for any professional help.
Right. No, but my reference was that how about the relationships? That's where the relationships can get hurt. And for them to come out with the positive thing when the child is being hurt or himself herself or himself is being hurt or something like that. At that time, for a family to come up with positive affirmations is the only thing you see, or there's something else they can do.
Yes, positive affirmations or creating positive energy eventually will help them heal. There is
And also positive visualization that we talked about.
Yeah, that visualization will help you create the positive energy. See, if sometimes, like as doctors, if you come to me, like you're a doctor too, it looks like that, say. So when patients come to us, we have to give them injections, we have to put IVs, we have to do so many things. We are hurting the patient, but really we are helping them. So there is help in the hurt. You see, and so sometimes we might need to take a stronger stance. We might need to take the bull by its horns to fix it, even if that may temporarily create some sort of discord, some sort of discontentment in the relationship. But eventually, when the soul gets healed, the soul will come back and say thank you to you. Yeah, again, but make sure that whatever you're doing, check this out. And it is not easy to check it out, but really deeply understand where is it coming from. Is it coming from that selfish state that I want the person to change for me so that I don't suffer, or really I'm doing this so that that person doesn't suffer?
Can I address a question that just a response to a question somebody had about what is an addiction? I'm also a physician, and the definition is actually much broader, and it starts with problem use. And problem use is essentially anything that, starts to affect your life in a negative way, and you continue to use it despite that. And then it sort of advances to a more serious phase, which is addiction, when you really, it not just affects your health or your relationships in a small way, but in serious ways where you may get a DUI, or, you lose a marriage, or all these types of things. So I just wanted to comment on that, because just to broaden our perspective, especially in our South Asian culture, where we're used to sort of stigmatizing a person with addiction as like, somebody on the street, a drunkard or something like that. Whereas oftentimes it is actually the most successful people that have to hide behind you know, um, these crutches to get through their life. And so I think it's something that we all, we can all look at our own lives and see what kind of addictions we have, maybe like the colloquial term of addiction. But really, if it's starting to cause a problem in some way, that's really when we have to analyze, like you say, and the methods you suggested.
I appreciate. Thank you so much for addressing that. Thank you.
One question that keeps repetitively coming in the chat box is, am I addicted to doing work perfection? That means, can perfection, being a perfection, also be a form of addiction?
Yes, for sure. Like the sister who just shared, if it's creating problem for you, for sure, yeah, you have to fix it for yourself. If you're not sleeping, if you're losing health.
Again, it goes back to imbalance that we talked about in the beginning.
Yeah.
If there is any kind of imbalance,
or emptiness,
emptiness, exhaustion.
Yeah, that gets created because of imbalance and emptiness. So we end up into that. So yeah, if there is emptiness, if there's imbalance, that's what it's going to end up creating for us. Yeah. Yeah. Say there's emptiness, that, oh, my self-worth depends on my achieving this much.
Yeah.
This whole concept, we couldn't even address it in this, really, is this whole concept of self-worth and self-respect, if you will. Yeah, where to understand that, what is my worth coming from? Is it coming from being a perfectionist, showing myself that I have achieved this and this? Then I'll keep running after that to address my self-worth, because my self-worth really depends on those. But if I can disengage the two, I can hold on to my self-worth that is independent of anything and everything around me. Yeah, and see myself as an image of God, see myself vibrating in the same frequency as God, see myself as someone that is loved by God all the time, no matter what. Then I don't have to prove my worth to anyone. Then I'll be able to heal myself from being a perfectionist.
But I have no one to show to. It's only me. There's nobody else in the house. Anybody else needs to know. It's for me.
I know. So you want to show it to yourself, sort of, in a way that happens too. It happens. We want to prove it to ourselves. But so then you don't have to prove it to yourself. You already know you're full, complete, whole, and perfect. You don't need to prove to yourself. Forget about proving to others.
But also, I think referring to that question about the perfection, like how sister was sharing that back when she was working, then the motivation was there to, I have to complete everything perfectly. So I think over a period of time, it has already formed a very subconscious habit that even though now being at home, there's nobody around, but still the habit is already stuck subconsciously. So then it's like the habit is penetrating in everything that I'm doing. I think another way of seeing, doing things perfectly, um, that there is, two sides to an ego, right? One is the feeling of superiority, and one is feeling inferiority. So both are basically not an accurate image of who I am, but it's like an image that I put up. So being perfection can also come under the influence of ego, that I would like to do, I would like to be, perform some things so people would acknowledge very subtly right? In the beginning, like we said, anything that we do in the beginning, it would start mellow, it would start in a very innocent way. And then once I start getting, once I start feeling the result of it, maybe praise, or maybe people now have higher expectations of me, people feel I'm competent. So I think that's like a taste, the taste that I'm beginning to have from what I have done. And then again, I'll start craving, okay, I want to have this more, I want to have this more. So then eventually that whole idea of wanting to do everything perfectly now becomes sort of like an aggression, right? Because I want to feel
Yes.
that feeling. And then now, even though there's nobody around, but I'm still stuck with that habit, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
So,
It helps at least to know why it's happening. So that now awareness is going to bring the change. So thank you.
yeah. So one last question I think we can take is, when a person says I can sleep on my bed only, is this also an addiction? Can preference be an addiction?
Why are we complicating addiction so much? Why don't we simplify it? You enjoy your bed, say sleep in it,
Okay, I guess
whatever. Yeah, it's
it's
what's a
just,
big deal?
if you get a chance to be on your bed, perfect. If not, then whichever bed you're sleeping, you can visualize you're sleeping on your bed.
Yeah, yeah. See, these are all attachments. In a way, yes, it's all addiction. The addiction to attachment, addiction to materialistic things. I want it this way. I want this thing here. I want this thing there. All of these things come from that core of emptiness. Fill yourself with God's love. Fill yourself with self-love of that higher quality, and fill yourself with service of mankind. All of these things will go away.
I think we are to the end now, to the end of the time now. And I think it was quite, I wouldn't even say quite, I think it's pretty much informative. And I think a lot of people came to a point of realization, came to a point of awareness. Maybe hopefully we hope that some of you have even received answers to what you were looking for, and how to, moving forward, what are the steps that you can do to help yourself or to help others. Yes, can I say that you did receive your answers? And if not, we can have it in another session.
Sister Ravino,
Yes,
did we tape this
yes, it is.
for future for us to kind of listen to it again? Thank you.
Everything is recorded, yes.
Do you
And
have one thing I want to ask? That I really like that self-fulfilling prophecy thing. Can we have a little more knowledge on it, or do you have some links to read about it, or something on it on the next session maybe, or
so
something?
our guest speakers
Ah.
were officially invited to the next session. The next session that we are actually going to explore is on social media and technology. Basically, that's high time, that's big time addiction, different forms of technology, and Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. So, and considering because of this pandemic, we've been forced to be indoors. I think we have sort of channeled our boredom or loneliness or just going into a routine life. We've channeled it to social media. And now, when things are finally opening up, when we have to get back into our um, old, I would say, routine or what we are supposed to do, I think we feel stuck. We feel stuck with this new habit that we've created over this year, over a year. So that's really what we're going to emphasize and explore in our next Thursday session. And any questions that you have pertaining to that, you can send it to me via email or text message, or I did receive some of your phone calls. You're most welcome. And we will keep this momentum going. Because addiction is addiction anyways. It doesn't matter whether it's in substance or whether it's in technology. But
We are addicted to you. We are
sorry?
addicted to you, sister.
Right.
Hopefully it's harmless.
Yes.
So thank you so much for this beautiful session. So can we wrap up with the meditation? Kanishtha Ben, would you like to lead us?
Yes.
We really want to thank the speakers. Really appreciated your talk today. Thank you.
It's our honor to
Yeah,
serve.
it's our pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you, Vindu.
Thank you so much.
I've known them for quite some time. We do visit, we do off and on meet. We have a retreat center in New York. We have a Brahma Kumari's retreat center in New York. It's called Peace Village. So every year we do have retreats for us, and that's where I would meet them. So actually, I called them to ask some other questions, and then as we were just sharing service ideas, how are you doing service there, and then how I'm doing service here. So as we were sharing, that's how this whole session just organically sprouted out, and so invited them to be part of this program, because I think medically also it does make a lot of difference, rather than just seeing this issue spiritually. Medically also it does help. So thank you, Kanishtha Ben and Shwetank Pai. We invite you to our next series.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was very nice, informative. Really appreciated.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute all of you. Kanishtha Ben will lead us into meditation. And as how we always do, once the meditation is done, we're not going to share, we're not going to speak. I will just quietly end the Zoom session. So take this experience back home with you. Okay? If you have any questions, then do send me via email or text message. Okay? Om Shanti. So I'm gonna mute all of, and then Kanishtha Ben, I will send a request for you to unmute. Okay. And I'm gonna put Shiv Baba on the screen so that we have the light to focus on. So let's together take this beautiful journey to experience our true self. So for a few moments, let go of everything of this physical world. And very gently connect to your true self, the being of light that you are. Light that is imperishable, immortal, indestructible, invisible. Create this powerful thought in your mind.
And allow this thought to penetrate deep into the core of your being. As you connect to this light, you begin to feel full and contented. Because this is the place which is full with peace, love, happiness, all the beautiful qualities. And this is what we all need. So from this space of fullness, of lightness, now take a moment to connect to the Supreme, the ocean of light, the ocean of abundance, the ocean of peace, ocean of silence, ocean of healing energy. Allow yourself to feel the flow of His pure love. And feel the fullness, the unlimitedness. And from this space, you can see your life very full, very happy, with no dependency on anything. You are full, complete, and whole. This is who you are. This is how God sees you. Remember, remember, remember.